because it did ping and it went off and you got this member decapitated. It's probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
Tend to Life with Elise starts right now.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Happy March and happy Tuesday. Feels like just yesterday it was March 2020, am I right? Just a little bit of Groundhog's Day or Groundhog Zero over here. How's everybody doing? Hopefully weather is getting nicer around the country and I guess globally for that matter as well. I know we have a lot of friends here from Texas, so I hope you guys are doing well and recovering from everything that went on. And we are going to talk some true crime today. Hello, everybody. I see some regulars in the chat. Hey, Becky. Hey, Danny. Hey, Cindy. Hey, Beanzerbop. So for those of you who are brand new here, my name is Elise, and this is my channel, Tend to Life, where we talk all things true crime. Once upon a time, it was supposed to be in 10 minutes or less, hence the name Tend to Life. Clearly, I didn't stick with that, so this one will probably be like a 60 to 90 life. I don't know. We'll see as we go. Thank you to everybody who has decided to become a new member of the channel and get your Tend to Life emojis, and those of you who have also decided to become amazing Patreons and join us in our private Discord group chats. We have so much fun in there, so welcome to everybody. Brand new month, brand new energy, brand new vibes. Today's discussion is obviously about the case of the missing West boys, Orrin and Orson. I tried to say that 5 times fast and I like jungle it every time. But anyways, we're going to talk about the updates because obviously there have been quite a few updates this week. We also are going to be talking about some of the things we've been hearing over the weeks, such as Chalk the dog. And we all know I spoke with the realtor and the loan officer and some more conversation that happened there. And we're really just going to kind of dissect everything. And there are a few key points, of course, that I want to talk about regarding the news we received this week with Bakersfield now taking the lead in the investigation, and also some things that I found very interesting in that release. And I'm going to bring it up on the screen and we're going to go item by item, line by line, and talk through that. So we're going to talk through not only what the police and what everybody is now saying, but also what they're asking the public and how they're asking for help, the last known sightings, the 20 plus search warrants and how that has contributed to this investigation, and now it being turned over to Bakersfield for the lead. I mean, there's a lot that we're going to discuss. And I want to just say really quickly, and I said this on TikTok earlier, I absolutely have no bad blood towards Lady Gaga, and I'm so glad that she has her dogs back. But if I pull up my phone one more time or turn on the radio or turn on the TV and see this being the featured mainstream media story about these dogs missing and now the dogs are recovered, I get it. It's a great thing, but like there's also 2 boys missing. Why aren't we seeing this on mainstream media? It just blows my mind, the cases and events that mainstream chooses to cover when, hi, these boys have been missing since allegedly December 21st. Why is there not more coverage on them? I'll get off my soapbox, but I just had to vent that for a second here. So I'm super excited to share with you guys this amazing special guest that we have on tonight. I'm going to bring him in just a second. You guys probably already are very familiar with him. His name is Mike King, and he's from the channel Profiling Evil, and he is going to be a wealth of knowledge for us today as we talk through all of this. And please ask the chat any questions you have for him, for me, as we go as well. And I will try to make sure I bring those on the screen and we can talk through them. Before we get started into that, don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn your notification bell to on so that you get notified of upcoming live streams and new videos as they get posted. And please give this a thumbs up as well to support the channel. And it, of course, helps push this out there so we can spread the word about these boys and hopefully get some freaking answers soon. So with that, I am going to bring Mike in. So if you guys can all please give him a warm welcome.
Hey, Annie, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. It's fun
Good.
to see so many names that are familiar in your chat window and to be back with you again. Gosh, yeah, you were so kind to come on my show, and I just love the fact that we get to chat a lot during the weeks. So that's fun to see you face to face.
Me too. I'm so glad to have you here. I would love it I know there's a lot of familiar names in here, but if you could just kind of give those who are brand new and meeting you for the first time a quick little synopsis of your channel, who you are, your experience.
Okay, well, the channel is Profiling Evil. We started actually in July of last year, so we're really young, like you. We have been really fortunate, I believe. I started the channel with a couple of things in mind. One was to rehumanize law enforcement because I was so frustrated with the many negative things that were happening. And while much of it was deserved, I wanted to just bring out the fact that cops are doing amazing things every day, and the men and women who are police officers are really doing it for the right reasons. So that was the first reason. The second, though, was kind of a three-legged stool here. The second was to highlight criminal cases that have gone unsolved for a long time, and just kind of like you do, bring those back into the public eye and help these families to know that they're not forgotten. And then the third is what I call public CSI, crowdsourced intelligence. And some YouTubers are kind of grabbing onto that and saying crowdsourced investigations. And I'm pretty against this idea of YouTubers going out and pounding the ground and interviewing people and ringing their doorbells. But I'm 100% behind using the power of the web and social media and relationships to gather as much information that maybe law enforcement doesn't have and forward that on to people. So that's why we did it. It seems to be resonating. We've been able to see some wonderful things happen as a result of it, most of which we never talk about, but it's nice to know we have something set up called the evidence room, Annie, and in that evidence room, we get tips and leads from people and we pass them on to law enforcement, and some have resulted in very positive things happening in investigation. So that's who we are. Background wise on me, I did a law enforcement career. I spent nearly 3 decades in law enforcement, worked my way through the ranks, eventually retired as chief of staff in the Attorney General's office. Along the way, I became very close to the FBI profiling unit and the profilers there, and was fortunate to be trained by profilers in this art and science of profiling. And so I have used that much of my career and today still. So there you are. That's me.
I can't wait to just start like tapping into all the insight you have, because I have literally like a boatload of questions and things that I want to ask you, and I want to say thank you. And I've got to do a quick shameless little plug here for you. Mike just came out with a book called Deceived, and he sent me a copy. I received it yesterday, all about the Zion Society cult. I'm telling you guys, I literally just started reading it last night, and I can already tell I'm going to stop binge watching Bravo. I'm going to put my housewives on hold. I'm like in it. So if you guys haven't picked up a copy yet, you for sure need to, 100%.
Oh, that's really kind. They can get it at our website, profilingevil.com. And that's actually the point we're using for people that want the hardbound version. They can get a signed version, or they can then push out and get the paperback from all of the regular normal distributors. So anywhere in the world now, they can get that. And the first printing sold out in 2 days. So we were so thrilled, but we're back in business and we are shipping again. And so it's been really gratifying to see. And Annie, I haven't told this on any other channel, but some of the proceeds of that are going to child victim advocacy programs. It's not something that I'm interested in making any money, and I've been very blessed with a career and a retirement, and I still have a job. So
fantastic. I love that. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people who pick up your book, because I know we're all weirdos in here. We all like to learn about that kind of stuff and read about cults. Like, you're not getting past me. So I know everybody in here, their curiosity is piqued. So, okay, let's jump right into these updates that came out this week. Of course, the number one thing that everybody is talking about is how Bakersfield has announced that they are now the lead in this investigation. And I personally find that very comforting, but also part of me can't help but think like, okay, why now? Why hasn't this been happening from day one? And I know that it was Cal City's jurisdiction, that the alleged crime supposedly took place there, if it did in fact happen on December 21st. So I understand that there's certain channels you have to move through. But I have to say, I'm happy that they're now taking the lead. Do you have any light that you can shed on that before I kind of dissect their statement?
Well, I mean, I've seen this happen a number of times, and of course, at the Attorney General's office, I led our missing persons and unidentifieds and unsolved homicides team, and there were many times that we went into smaller jurisdictions and took over responsibility for the case just because they didn't have the resources. I think one thing that I saw that was really interesting that kind of tipped my ear a little, Annie, was just the remark that California City, it sounded like, from what I've read in public sources, that they've run out of leads. And so they've chased everything that they possibly can. But gosh, imagine this is a 16 officer police department, if I remember the numbers right, including the police chief. An investigation like this demands so many resources. And even though FBI and Kern County and Bakersfield were helping, being able to hand that off so they can continue to do daily policing to somebody that has a little deeper bench really makes good sense. And I don't think it's an indictment in any way on the police department. I think they took it as far as they could take it. And, it might be that they're pointing back to Bakersfield because they're determining that maybe if something was wrong, that it wasn't in California City, but maybe in Bakersfield. So
you are now, that is where I'm going, because that's 100% what I'm thinking. So what I want to do before we continue to talk about like certain pieces of this case and updates, I want to just have everybody kind of review this. And I have two versions of this. I'm going to this way towards the camera. I have this press release where we're just going to read and walk through. And then I have another one, which is the exact same, but I highlighted certain pieces of it that stuck out to me that I would love you to share your insight and thoughts on. And if I'm going on a wild goose chase here, or if there is some merit behind what I'm thinking. So here they basically just are announcing that they're the primary or lead agency for the investigation into the disappearance of the boys and the circumstances surrounding the disappearance. The Cal City Department and FBI will continue to have active roles in the investigation, which we know. Now, it breaks down here what the primary or lead agency is responsible for, and it says, due to facts now known by investigators and the circumstances surrounding the disappearance, the city of Bakersfield is a historical nexus to the children. And I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. And then they go on to say they're asking for anyone who has had contact with the boys in the last year, regardless the context, to contact them. And any information regarding the whereabouts, circumstances, or history of the little boys, they're encouraged to share that information with law enforcement using that secret witness tip line. And then they wrap it up by saying, the public is, of course, very vested in this case, that there is a demand and public outcry because everybody wants answers, but that certain information is, of course, being held closer to the vest because they don't want to jeopardize the investigation or jeopardize any leads they may already have, which I think we can all understand. So I highlighted a few pieces here that stood out to me that I would love to get your thoughts on. First being, they talk about how they're now the lead agency into the disappearance of the boys and the circumstances surrounding it. Now, when I read that piece, it immediately piqued my interest because I thought, okay, there are suspicious circumstances surrounding the entire disappearance. We've seen the footage. We've seen that the cadaver dog who was on the property never picked up their scent in the backyard, even though the boys were allegedly playing in the backyard with chalk. And we'll get to if it's actual street chalk or the dog chalk in a little bit here. And so I thought that piece of it was very interesting, because they harp on circumstances quite a few times in here.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting. Number one, I don't know. Sometimes we read more into a sentence than there really is. It might be a public information officer who's just trying to fill out a really nice press release. But if you think about any key in on the word circumstances, it does make you want to think back to what was the precipitating factors, what was happening beforehand that make Bakersfield so important in this picture. And of course, we know the nexus with family members living there, with the Wests personally living there before they moved out to California City. But again, it's like it could be just words that the PIO put down too.
It does sound beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But as we keep going, so we know there was who was it? His name is slipping my mind. One of the lead news anchors who did an interview yesterday, and he says how after over 20 search warrants were executed, that information that they had obtained through those search warrants is what now is leading investigators back here to Bakersfield. And so I thought that this next piece was interesting, where it says, due to facts now known to investigators, and this, again, that word, circumstances surrounding the disappearance, it's the historical nexus to the children. And like you said, before the move to Cal City, the West family lived in Bakersfield, the Bio family lived in Bakersfield, not far from each other. And there has been a lot of speculation that these boys may never have even made it to Cal City.
Yeah, and I think you got to hand it to law enforcement that they haven't tipped their hand, nor has somebody at Family Services goofed up and tipped their hand. But the kids are really important here to be able to get the testimony from the children. They're going to be much more truthful and much more reliable, in my opinion, even than family members around the West, because they're going to be the ones to say, yeah, we went shopping on Saturday before, Christmas, and we were all together, or no, the kids didn't move to California City with us, or whatever the case may be. Those kids are really critical, and the testimony they have is really important. And again, why they keep saying that as a result of the search warrants, it's pushing them back. It could be, again, absolutely that the search warrants proved and found nothing in California City. So the natural thing is to go back to the last place where we know that the victims were. And so the fact that the search warrants are part of this press release isn't necessarily disturbing to me. It might be a golden nugget that you're right on target with, or it might be that it's just saying, hey, the trail goes cold when they move to California City, so we got to come back.
Absolutely, which I think too, to that point, we know that all of the neighbors who spoke up or spoke out or were interviewed in Cal City said they had never seen the boys, that they hadn't seen the children at all. So you would think that, okay, that would have to take you back to Bakersfield when they were last seen, whenever that may have been, which kind of takes me over into my next point here. When they start crowdsourcing for information for whoever has seen the boys within the last year, regardless of the context. Now, I think that's very important, because there, again, has been so much conversation about the boys never making it to Cal City. And those photos that we all have seen, which are essentially the only photos really out there of the boys, are from, I believe, Thanksgiving 2019. So if they're looking for information of, hey, who has seen them within the last year, not only do I think that are they trying to build a timeline of sorts, but also trying to pinpoint when were they in fact truly last seen, because the last photo we have is really old. And so I don't care how you saw them, I don't care where you saw them, but like, where'd you see them, to get some information to see what's even real at this point, and if they made it to Cal City.
Yeah, I think you're right on. It is so important that people that might know something, even if they don't feel it's significant, step up and let this sergeant pair know what's going on and what they saw and what they heard. And it's really difficult, because sometimes you have to really look at the witness who's providing information. So just because someone calls and says, I didn't see that boy, or I saw those boys, you got to really think about, now, what's the framework of that witness's testimony? Guys might see one boy and think that's all the boys. A mother might know exactly which boy is which by age, because they might be much more attuned to that than the man in the same relationship or home that lives next door to him in the apartments or other places. So it isn't just a matter of having someone step up and say, hey, I'm an eyewitness, I saw something, but then it's evaluating the value of the witness. And what is so important in an investigation is that you think about the individual's biases, their own experiential things that have happened in their life, because all of those things impact what we see in our mind when we look at something. And that's really the challenge of communications when we have eyewitnesses, is it being influenced by experiential things or bias or other kinds of things? And so while we love to hear somebody say, I'm an eyewitness, sometimes that's the worst piece of evidence that a police officer can rely on.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting too, and I'm just thinking about this back to what you had mentioned earlier about how the kids are going to be so critical in this, and they're going to speak up, hopefully, as far as telling the truth as to when they last saw the boys, if they did in fact all go shopping. And I wonder if that could have played a role if they did give testimony, and that's why it also is being brought back to Bakersfield. If the kids are saying, no, they never moved with us, we don't know what information the police department has at this point. But I think it's interesting because here again, and this is the last point I highlighted, they bring up the circumstances again, and they say anyone with information about the history of the little boys. And I don't know why I'm getting so stuck on that, but when I read that, it stood out to me like, okay, so they want to know if this is a pattern. They want to know if, I mean, we know in that interview, Trezell was saying they're rambunctious or whatever he said, but I just thought it was really interesting that they're asking for the history of the boys or anybody with knowledge on that. What's your take?
Yeah, well, no, I think it's prudent, quite frankly, is to remind the public, and probably should have been happening every single day. And of course, we heard the California city chief say this over and again. If you know something, please let us know. But I think it's really important to keep thinking about this. And I think you're really onto something. There's a reason why they're drawing it back. Is it because they're saying the evidence doesn't point to the kids ever leaving Bakersfield? Is there something there? Is there something in the quiver that they've got, and they're preparing to file some charges, and that's the appropriate place that those charges would have to be filed from? Now, it could be that it just makes good sense from a standpoint of personnel. The county certainly has the authority to investigate cases in both of those cities, so the county sheriff could have stepped in, but for some reason they're taking it back to the city, and it might simply be because right there is where every critical person that they need to talk to is living, so it's easier just to get back and forth. It might be a traveling salesman problem of California City having to drive to Bakersfield twice a day to ask questions.
So I do want to get, and I know your time here, we have about 40 minutes left, so I want to be sensitive, and guys, please make sure that you ask your questions for Mike in the comments, but I want to get your take on this. Now, I've been hung up, I don't know if it's justified or not, but I've been hung up on the photo piece of this from day one. Why there are not more recent photos of the boys, why not even necessarily more recent, but why there wasn't more of a variety of photos of the boys. And I know that I'm like a psychopath mom, and I'm like just like rapid fire taking pictures of my son, but that's because I'm like a stalker and it's in my own right. But I find it so hard to believe that if you truly love children so much that you're adopting, you're fostering, you have your own, and you have these amazingly sweet little boys, 3 and 4 years old, that you don't have more photos of them and that you don't have more recent photos of them. And then it started getting me thinking, okay, well, their tech was seized or they turned it over willingly, I can't remember which, to where when they're going through that, they would, of course, then see if there were recent photos, the timestamps, also the geotag and the location of those, which you would think would indicate something and build some sort of pattern as well. And I don't know how it works in law enforcement, and you may be able to shine some light on this, but before the billboards went up, if they did have that tech and they found a recent photo, whether it was from December or even this last Thanksgiving, something more recent than 2019, would they use those new photos for the billboards or for flyers since it's more of a recent photo and depiction of the boys, or would they keep that information still close to the vest?
So really interesting questions. And I guess a couple of things that I would say first and foremost. One is, which photo do you use? You're going to use the one that is going to get you the biggest jump with the population, that's going to remind the most people. And if they were thinking to themselves, hey, the last 4 months in California City, the kids never left the house by testimony of the parents because of COVID, maybe you pick an older picture because that's the one that's most representative of the child then in hopes that someone will recognize. Now, children change so quickly as they mature in those younger years, but there wasn't enough time in between those. So what really becomes important to me from a behavioral perspective, Annie, is that I would want to go back and look at all of the photographs taken by that family and the photographs taken of other children to see what the consistent patterns are, because some parents don't take a lot of pictures, others do. And so we often want to jump to a decision based on what our value system would be, when maybe they didn't do that very often. So that becomes more important to me than the question of whether they had a lot of pictures or a few pictures.
Now, however, though, hypothetically, if say there were more recent photos on their phones, which I would have to believe if there were, that those would have been photos they would use. I would just think so, because even if they're inside because of COVID, there's still opportunity to take photos, Halloween, even if they didn't go trick-or-treating.
Absolutely.
I mean, different things. But so if the police did discover any recent photos, would they use those at all? Or would they want to keep that information private and just keep with the one or two photos, I should say, that have really been out there in the public eye?
Yeah, and I think the best way to answer that is if you look at the example of the experts, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they're going to use a current photo and they're going to use a photo of the last time a child was missing for people. They're going to make age progression photos to put in there. So you raise a good question. Is it just the fact that somebody hasn't thought that far ahead? Who's paying for those billboards? Are they the ones deciding what photograph is going up, what photographs really were available? And this goes back to the seizure of those phones on day one, what was on them, and then what the order of photos were that were on those. And did Orson and Orrin have equal billing with photographs as other children, or do we start to see that there's a separation of relationship that we can start seeing behaviorally?
Absolutely. And I think that kind of ties in to this question here from Shelby, as far as if there's any word on the last doctor check, adoption check, or shots and well checks. To my knowledge, there has not been any updates with any of this, and no public records have come out. But I think that kind of ties a little bit back with the photos of how well taken care of and how loved were these boys, really. Were they taken for their shots? Were they taken for their well visits? Because we know that not many people in the public ever even saw these boys. Even the realtor and the loan officer I spoke with never, can't recall ever seeing them. They say that they were always in the van. So was there a hyper paranoia happening from the family to where they wanted to keep them concealed? I know Trezell had spoken out to and confided that he was very much a believer in certain conspiracy theories. And so did he want to just protect his family that way? I don't know. But I just think that it all kind of starts to paint, honestly, like an uncomfortable picture. And the first thing I thought of when I was like trying to find more information and more imagery with these boys was I thought about Kaylee Anthony, because there were those staple photos that were everywhere in that case. And there was other imagery that was out there, but pictures that were taken by her grandparents, who we know loved her very much, but there wasn't a lot.
Yeah, it is troubling. And again, it's this reminder and there we go. It's this reminder that we have to look at what is normal for that particular family, not what might be normal for us. And that's really frustrating, because we do want to reflect on, I'm a loving parent. I take lots of pictures. I post some pictures. I share pictures with family, but maybe somebody else doesn't. And so we have to then separate ourselves from the emotion of these cases and look at it very factually of what was the appropriate and normal behavior of this particular family. How were the West's parents? How were Jacqueline's parents in the way that they treated things? Is it something that's systemic and is rolled through generation to generation? Or did they all of a sudden change things? You know, having some children that were still in foster care, some that you've adopted, some that are yours. What was the mechanism and the reasoning behind that? Was it a money stream? Was it actually love? Those are all things that the investigation really doesn't show us publicly, but in that private part of the investigation, I'm sure they've uncovered that.
I think you raise a really good point too. Regardless if they're the kind of family that takes a lot of images and, you know, captures these memories or not, and if that comes down through their family history, also there's the kind of family who's going to take those pictures in private in the home, or those who want to post them on social media. And I do know, based on what the realtor and the loan officer had shared with me, that the day of closing when they bought the house, you know, realtors, my brother and sister are both in real estate. And one of the biggest things they do for marketing is every time they close on a house, they take a photo handing the keys to them in front of the new house and the sold sign. And so the realtor had said, I would love to take a photo with you guys to do this. And Trezell was adamant and said, no pictures. We don't want any sort of like to document it. So I think that he was very private in that way. And I think that also was illustrated through anytime he went to sign the loan docs or meet with them, that his family was kept in the van when he would go inside. Yeah, the realtor shared with me that at one point he had to go sign papers at the realtor's house over the summer in Bakersfield when it was excruciatingly hot outside. And the realtor said, do you want your family to come in? They can have water, they can be inside. And he's like, no, they're going to be in the van. And they were out in the van for a while, like a good while. So, which again, could something have possibly happened in the van? I don't know. Like, there's just so many questions. But I think it's interesting
again,
too.
I'm so proud of the police department for keeping so much information away from us. Now, there's the other side of me that's so frustrated because I want to know what Christmas presents there were. I want to see something that shows where they were spending money, or a receipt from a gas station where the camera actually has more than 4 children in the van. There are so many things that could really lend a lot of credibility to stories, and we're just not seeing that, and it's really frustrating. And I spent a lot of time and I know you're going to go into this in a minute, but just studying that backyard and the environment around it, because you know, I'm a real geography and crime kind of a person, and there are lots of things that are troubling there.
Well, let's jump right into that. Let's talk about the backyard, because one of the biggest pieces that everybody's been talking about the last several weeks is that chalk was, they say that the boys were outside playing with chalk, everybody ran with the assumption that it was drawing chalks, like street chalk, but that it was really the dog, because another YouTube creator, as he was canvassing the neighborhood and on foot, you know, saw them walking, the dog was with them, he yelled chalk, the dog looked. It has not been confirmed that the dog's name is Chalk. I want to start with that. I'd also like to follow up by saying I can call my dog Freckles any name in the book, and he'll look at me with the dopiest little face. So
especially if you're a stranger.
Exactly. And it made, to me at least, and I could be completely wrong, but when he says that they were playing with chalk and that he had them only on that concrete slab, he said, don't go on the dirt, stay there. To me, again, that kind of ties hand in hand with, that's where they would use chalk, obviously, is on that concrete thing. They're not going to stay 2 toddlers with this pit bull dog on a 4x4 slab of concrete. It's just not realistic unless the dog was leashed to like the leg of the table. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But tell me, I would love to hear your insight with the backyard, because of course they did the search in the backyard. They dug up holes, and you said that there was some information troubling that you saw. What's your take?
Well, I think a couple of things that immediately jumped out to me. There was a YouTuber, and I just think the world of him. His name's Doug, and I'm not going to say his channel, but he has, you know, a small number of subscribers. He's a little bit on the edge where some people consider him controversial. I think he's just a delightful human being, and I've really enjoyed talking to him. He was going out there on many days with his drone, and I actually asked him one day, to fly over the backyard and get some good drone imagery because I wanted to study that back porch. I don't know if you saw, there were some photos that came out, and I believed initially that they were doctored and they've disappeared. And I don't know if any of the listeners saw these, but there was after the word chalk emerged, all of a sudden there was an image of that back patio with yellow chalk written on it near up against the house and next to the door, and a piece of yellow chalk on the carpeting. And then a few days later, I saw the exact same image with a piece of blue chalk where the yellow chalk was. And everyone spun it up and said, look, they're staging it. And I found that really frustrating because I took that same first picture and I went into Photoshop and I just moved the color bar up and down, and I changed the color of the chalk and I changed the scenario. And so I had to see that backyard. And with that drone imagery, I could not see a bit of chalk mark on that patio. I could see things that that were clear where things had been moved from previous images that were released, I think, by the media initially, of some imagery of a drone. But that was so high and so granulated when you zoomed in on it that it became a little difficult. But I immediately became a little bit intrigued by the holes that were drilled and the symmetrical nature of the holes that were drilled in the backyard. Initially, I incorrectly said, looking from the top down, that I didn't see piles of dirt. It wasn't until later this same individual dug, and I should say, I guess his YouTube, it's the No Thanks guy. Doug went out and he took some pictures over the fence for me and sent them back to me. And there were some mounds of dirt that were old. Now, were they old because FBI dug it up, or did FBI simply probe down into those holes and see if the ground was soft or disturbed? Because when you're looking for a body, you're going to take a probe and you're going to push down in the dirt and you're going to see if the dirt gives way. Because here's the forensic side of it. You bury a body underground and you can smash the dirt down, but as that body starts to decompose, that earth is going to get hollow where that body was, and you're going to be able to tell the difference as you probe. Then we later saw them bring out that ground penetrating radar, which then reconfirmed that they weren't finding any burial sites within there. But the thing that I said early on that I thought was later confirmed was that those holes were so symmetrical that if you look at the early pictures, there were actually some four-legged tables in the backyard, one near the house on the north side of the house, and then one out by the shed between the gate and the little drive that led to the shed in the backyard. And in using measurement tools with some GIS tools, those legs fit perfectly for the symmetrical nature of the holes dug in the ground. And so if you do some research on the web, you can see where people that are growing marijuana are using very similar kinds of structures to create a netting network to hold the marijuana plant up and help it to grow healthy and strong. And so it started to disprove some things. But then with that same video, it was really high quality video that Doug got. And I went in and started looking more closely, and there wasn't anything to support that there was a dog in the backyard, like dog mess in the very back corner behind the shed. There may have been some, and some animals are habitual in nature and could go to the same spot every time they go outside to go to the bathroom. But there didn't appear to be dig marks, footprints, and most importantly, Elise, I never saw a dog dish on the back porch to support this dog. Now, another YouTuber went out and actually talked to family members and said that Chalk isn't the name of any dog in any family. So, again, I don't know where any of that came from, or if it just made perfect sense to say they were out with chalk and coloring or something like that.
Absolutely. Melissa here is saying, why did they never search the parents' property? Now, I don't know that they haven't for certain. I just would imagine they haven't made that public yet. But if they have executed over 20 search warrants, I would imagine that they would search anywhere where they had, of course, cause to search and reason to search. But I would imagine too that they may not make that public. Do you have any sort of take on that?
Yeah, I would not release anything I didn't have to release, because I would want to use that as part of my interrogation or my interview to just have some things in my tight to the vest that only me and the suspect, and hopefully the suspect doesn't know that I know.
Mm-hmm. And just circling back quickly, so when they were doing the search of the property, the backyard, and they had those cadaver dogs and they had the scent inside and then did not pick it up outside, excuse me. Is there anything that you believe as far as, is there a reason why they wouldn't pick that scent up outside if the boys were in fact ever there? And is it possible that they either A, picked up the scent of the boys in the house from a piece of furniture or a piece of clothing from the previous house, or who's to say that the tracking scent they were given was in fact belonging to the boys? Could it have belonged to anybody else for that matter? How reliable is that?
I'm with you. I mean, I have such great confidence in cadaver dogs and in police search dogs. I relied upon the prison and their bloodhounds on several occasions, looking and tracking. When Elizabeth Smart went missing, bloodhounds were the first thing, and the handlers talk about the fact that that dog can actually differentiate between one scent or another. Again, I don't know the sophistication of the dogs that they used. I would assume they have incredibly good dogs, but I have the same issues of you. I mean, I think of my boys wore the same clothes sometimes. These kids were all kind of small. The fact that clothes in that house could have been packed in the same drawer together or sitting in the same dirty laundry bin, I just wonder about how much contamination or cross transference of these scents there could be. I think the important thing is, the important message that came out of it to me was that the dogs didn't pick up on a scent once they went outside that was interesting to them. Now, I'm the guy that says, well, why didn't they pick up Trezell's scent as he was walking around and at least show some interest? Because that's the same scent that was inside the house too. So again, I'm not probably giving the search dogs the credit they deserve to say, oh, that's John's smell and this one's or this one's Orson's smell and this one's Orrin's smell, or child number 3's smell. And so we would want to have one of those dog experts come and share thoughts on something like that.
Absolutely. Now, too, just thinking back to the last reported sightings, because that's something I wanted to talk about here and touch on. There was someone who came out recently saying that a lady saying that she saw them on the 21st, I believe, in San Jose. And there's something along those lines. And there's been a lot of mixed opinions out there that she's either not being truthful, that she's remembering the dates wrong, or that she, in fact, is telling the truth. But the last known sighting that we have that's concrete is, I believe, 2019, if I'm not mistaken, because nobody saw them in Cal City. Nobody saw them leading up to the sale of the purchase of the new home and the move. That's why I also, in one of my previous videos, had asked, would law enforcement reach out to the moving company that they use to see if they ever saw the kids, to see how many bunk beds or beds were moved in, to how they're sharing and configuring these rooms, like to get some sort of information, which again, maybe they are and they're not sharing that, but there still isn't a concrete timeline of the last known sighting. This is all hearsay right now. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I listened to your interview and your guest that night that you brought up that very topic. And that's one area where I have absolute respect for your guest that was on. I just think he's remarkable. But from a profiling and behavioral standpoint, I disagreed with the weight that question you had carried, and it was very insightful of you to bring that up, because we need to know, were those children's beds packed and sent? Were their belongings packed and sent? Or had they already been disposed of and weren't really necessary to bring anything over? So the question was very good. And maybe not fully understood by your guest when you asked it, because some things you might not care about, but items that pertain to what is normal behavior and an aberration from normal behavior is incredibly important in these kind of cases.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I just feel like at this point, when so much time has passed and there aren't any concrete leads that we at least are aware of at this point, you need any pieces of information that you can get, because you need to start building the timeline, the storyline of what could have happened to these boys. And it seems like everything is just a question mark right now for everybody. And it's just so unfortunate, because I've been saying it. I believe that this is going to turn out to be a recovery more than a rescue. And it makes me so sad. And I think you had mentioned that you have those sentiments as well. But something I think is very interesting, there's a huge stretch of land and desert. You can go from like just in Bakersfield in general, but also the entire stretch to Vegas. So they could be anywhere theoretically. And I mean,
absolutely.
The likelihood, like, I would love to know your thoughts. What's the likelihood of a conviction when there's no bodies recovered?
So we're seeing this in progress right now in Pueblo, Colorado, with the case of Kelsey Schelling and her disappearance, and Dante Lucas and this circumstantial case. So what it boils down to is, to go forward, if you were to look at something like there was enough information to make it so heavily weighted that you're convinced that the children were murdered, then you have to create a circumstantial case that is so compelling to say A plus B is going to always equal C, and present it in a way. And it takes a lot of courage on a prosecutor's part. Again, I just keep saying how important in Pueblo right now this case is in Pueblo, because of cases like Suzanne Morphew and others, that prosecutors continually are reminding themselves that there's a circumstantial case possibility if in fact you can point to all the other things. There may be simply a negligence case that's looked at, but that's getting the cart in front of the horse, in my opinion, because again, we're guessing based on public information where they've got all of the really cool stuff. Might be all part of this whole strategy to come back to Bakersfield. I mean, I'm going to pose a question to you in just a minute here that I wonder if people are even thinking about. But think about this. There are four kinds of evidence that we normally look at in a criminal case. We look at physical evidence, like the clothing that they've recovered, and chalk, if there really is a chalk. And then we look at forensic kinds of evidence, like fingerprints or body fluids, or we're looking for DNA. We're looking for recovery of body parts. Things like that become forensic in nature. And then we have eyewitness accounts, and that's what's so important in this case right now. Our law enforcement's reaching out and saying, if you saw something, say something, tell us about it. And that becomes really important. So those three, and then you add the fourth type of evidence that law enforcement usually relies on, and that's circumstantial evidence. And I cannot think of a case, Annie, that it looks like Doug threw some money at you. So I'm so
is this
glad
Doug?
to hear that.
Thanks,
Doug.
Thank you all for all of the super chats. I want to go one by one, and we'll get there.
It's great to see him pop up. So you have those four, but what's really important is you cannot convict someone on one alone. I just can't think of a case where it's happened. And think about how dangerous it would be if we actually convicted people on hearsay or even forensic evidence alone. It's important that we have several forms of evidence included when law enforcement and prosecution go forward. Then we add, from a profiling perspective, you add the fifth form of evidence, which is behavior. And more we're seeing police agencies pick up the importance of behavior in these cases. And so a circumstantial case, absolutely in the cards and could happen. but it's not going to happen just because my gut says they killed the kids, or somebody else killed the kids, or the kids were sold, or they were, whatever. It's going to require several forms of evidence to have a successful prosecution.
Jill's turning. Just, Britt, I see your question. How do children go missing? And I imagine you meant to say unnoticed. I agree. If you meant something different, please let me know. But they do go missing and unnoticed, and I don't know how that happens. I mean, COVID has definitely made that easier. It's made it easier for people to go missing. It's made it easier for people to be targets for abuse. It's made DV easier to get away with. I mean, because the world has been shut down to where everybody is now private in their four walls, a lot of things can unfortunately go unnoticed, which is very, very unfortunate, especially too, because so many children are becoming prey to the digital predators. It's just, I could go on for hours.
I'm afraid next year is going to be a terrible year for statistics for children and for things like domestic violence and sexual assault, as we see the numbers then start to be truly counted. But on that question, I think it's really important to recognize that the U.S. is really no different than any other country and better off than many underdeveloped countries, but the numbers are staggering. I mean, on average, 800 to 860-ish thousand people go missing every single year, and most of those return, according to statistics over the last 30 or 40 years, and I don't know exactly the numbers, but 87% are going to come home. So Elise, that means Annie, that means that 104,000 people every stinking year are going to disappear off the face of the earth in the United States alone, and we have no idea where they went. That's 104,000 families. That's bigger than most cities in the United States. And imagine taking a city and just wiping it off the planet every single year. And I don't know if it's on my side or on Annie's side. I'll look at the chats here. If you could indicate in the chats if you all are seeing Annie. Oh, she's frozen, Shelby. Well, thanks. So I'm going to do what I would expect others to do for me if I'm still on. I'm going to just see if I can see a couple of questions here and answer those as we go through until Annie is able to come back on. The missing numbers are just incredible. In the United States alone, we average about 21,000 murders per year. And what we've seen recently is an increase in murders in major cities this year as a result of all that. So I've been just carrying your show for you, Annie. So
thank you. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here. And I have this weird light on my face.
So anyway, no, I was just saying, Annie, okay, the numbers are just, go ahead. It sounds like you're back.
No. Keep going, please, with the numbers and the statistics.
Well, no, the numbers are just staggering. And the thing that's really troubling is, back in the 1960s, we were solving about 90% of all murders in the United States. Today, that number is down to about 60%. Some say close to 70%, but we've become such a mobile society that it's more difficult today to solve a homicide than it was back then. Now, part of us thinks that it should be that it's easier today because technology is so much better. But these are real challenges. And so this is where the power of things like the true crime community can make such a difference, because we can at least find as much information and then forward it to the people that need to make decisions.
Definitely. I know you're running short on time, so I have a couple more questions really quickly. Vanessa, I believe that Chief Walker had said that the parents had taken them or were asked to take them. I originally heard that they refused to take a lie detector test. I don't know if they ended up taking them and what results those tests yielded, but it's unclear at this point. That hasn't been made public yet. Last I had heard, they had refused, but that was also, I think, 6 weeks ago. And so really quickly, I just want to circle back. You were talking about the different key points within the investigation and the different evidence that they use. And it got me thinking regarding the forensic evidence. I can't recall, and somebody in the chat maybe can let me know, did they ever seize the van? And I would be interested to know, was the van cleaned out? And when they dusted for prints, were the 2 young boys' prints ever recovered, or just the other children? That's something that we haven't really talked much about that I would like to know the answer to. And then another piece that I would love you to just shed a tiny bit of light on, if you can, before you go. There's a lot of speculation that the Bio family is somehow involved in this. I don't want to speculate and I don't want to share my opinions on that, but there has been a lot of conversation that they believe that the boys are in fact alive and that the Bio family is responsible. Could that be another indicator as to why this investigation is now moving back to Bakersfield? I think there's so many pieces as to why it seems reasonable that it would move back to Bakersfield, but I can't help but wonder if they did notice something was up and something suspicious with the Bio family. Is that now why Bakersfield is taking the lead, since that's where they reside?
Yeah. Well, so first on the van, my understanding from Chief Walker's testimony, his interview with the media, was yes, they did take the van into custody and process that. There are questions surrounding a seat that's in the backyard of a family member's house, and there's questions about what may have been recovered in the van. The chief, I think, also did indicate that they luminoled the van, and there's even a better process in that process that looks for body fluids, particularly blood evidence and other things. And it seems to me like he indicated that there was nothing recovered to suggest that. So that's about all I know on that. And probably someone has much better answers on here than that. On the flip side, let's see.
I'm just popping up with some comments on here. Yeah. Keep going, though, with your thoughts. I'm just going to throw some comments on here for people.
Seemed to me like the chief just kept reiterating that the parents were cooperative every time they asked. So again, I don't know, I would be guessing. But so you posed a question about the biological family, and it has to be considered, is it possible? And Shelley Moulton, I hate my dimples, but I've lived with them for a lot of years. So thank you so much for saying that. And they were much deeper when I was thin and athletic. But it's really interesting. When you were on my show, Annie, I had my buddy from the profiling unit, Mark Safrick, on, and you asked about possibilities. And he said something really important, and that is, every possibility has to be considered. So it would be incumbent upon every police department to also be vetting the biological family, because again, they would be ones who would have a vested interest in being able to have access to the boys and get them and take them into custody without anyone knowing, since they legally lost those children. Did they do that? I'm not suggesting that in any way. I'm not minimizing the aches that they're going through. I'm just saying it absolutely would be incumbent to vet that and resolve whether that's a possibility and follow all the leads, because they would be, just like when we talk about motive, means, opportunity, they would be people that you would have to consider for that. And so I guess I would leave that as a question that would be really fun to hear people's answers on. And
of course.
There we go. You're back. I was going to say, I'm going to just carry on.
I know my camera keeps shutting off. No, I know you have to get going, but I want to thank you so much for joining. We need to do this again soon, please.
Oh, it's my privilege. I think the world of you. And by the way, folks, I'm pretty picky about who I hang out with. And Annie, I like the way you think. I like your humility. And it's just really fun. I love having you on my show, and I would come back anytime. And I would just say to your viewers that if you haven't tried us out at Profiling Evil, come over and give us a look. We're not very glitzy. This is it. I mean, I can't change.
Hey, you're fancier than me. Look at those lights behind you.
Oh yeah. I have my producer who is my biggest advocate, gave me this nightclub look. So it works great. But thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear when you finish the book what your thoughts are on it. It's just a delight to be with you.
Yes, we have to talk. Definitely. Thanks so much for joining, Mike. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Goodbye.
All right, guys. Okay, so I want to see, I know there's tons of questions going through in the chat, so please keep them coming. I also am going to open up the panel. So those of you who want to call in with any questions or call in to share your opinions, your views on what's going on. And before we jump into that, I would love to just kind of get a feel for, there's about 1,700 of you guys in here right now. I would love to get a feel for what you believe. So let's go ahead and do this. If you believe that the boys are still in fact alive somewhere, put a 1. If you believe that the bio family is involved, whether the boys are no longer with us or are hopefully still with us, put a 2. And if you believe the adopted parents are the ones involved, put a 3. And you can either throw that in the chat or comment below. But I'm interested to kind of see what everybody is believing. Wow, there's actually quite a few 1s, more, which hopefully that is the case. That's definitely more than I thought we were going to see. Oh, there come all the 3s. There they all come. So let me look here while you guys are putting those in. Oh, lots of 3s. 1 and 2. Angela, I saw your comment. Why blame the bio mom? I hear you. There's a lot of mixed opinions out there right now as to who's involved. I'm going to keep my opinion to myself for now. I'm going to post the StreamYard link. If you want to call into the panel, please do so. I'm going to pin this as well. And I just want you guys to remember to please keep it respectful if you call in. There's also a limited amount of people who can join at any time. So we want to make sure that we, if you are calling in to share your opinion, ask your questions, and then sign off so you can allow more people to shuffle in and out as needed. And then also continue to go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and I will answer those as best as I can before we hit the road. Everyone is sketchy. Everyone is sketchy. Amen. Amen. It's just a really unfortunate situation all the way around. It's very, very sad. Hey, Charlize, how are you?
I am great. How are you, Annie?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I was just going to pop in for a quick second so you can get to some other people. But as far as the biological family is concerned, I think the chief made it pretty clear that they have been very cooperative, and he had no reason to suspect anything on their end at this point. At least that was what he stated in the interview with Bion. And then I'm not saying, who knows what's happened? It's anybody's guess at this point. However, I go with my gut. I'm a parent and a grandparent, and I can never erase that interview from the adoptive family. There was just no true emotion.
I'm with you. I just feel like not only was there no true emotion, they never said the boys' names once.
No descriptive, no. If you look at any other missing case, Annie, and I know you followed a ton, this case has followed zero of the typical protocol from the beginning that most missing kids cases follow. And even Mark Klaus said, red flags are everywhere. Every professional person with any number of years experience, every person that I personally have heard has said the adoptive parents are very suspect. I'm sorry. And I'm actually starting school to do forensic statement analysis. And I was watching some of the profilers that do that, and I watched them analyze their interview. And there was so many red flags. They were stopping it every few seconds. And it's like
Uh-oh.
they didn't plead for the boys. They didn't, cry. It was no tears. There was no emotion for the boys. It's like, we're going through it. Yeah, we're going through it. And we didn't want to do this because the bio family. Well, who cares? That's your children. You adopted them. Who cares what the bio family says? I want my kids back. You know what I mean?
100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Everybody knows I'm a big person about red flags. Like, I throw them up everywhere when I see them. But it was the body language, the lack of emotion. There was no tears. They didn't call them by name. They didn't give any sort of descriptors of the children except for rambunctious, which why is that even a descriptor that you're saying in an interview? At the end, there was no public plea for them to be safely returned or to say, Mommy and Daddy are still thinking of you. We love you. We're doing everything we can. There was nothing. Instead, like you said, they made it about themselves, about the struggle they're going through, just like Watts did. And I know everybody hates always bringing back everything to Watts, but it's the truth. True sociopath comparison,
Exactly. And the grandparents did it too on the ABC interview. They made it about them. We're grieving. And is it not funky to you that they always separate themselves? Like Jamal always separates himself from his brother. He's always this is from our family. It's not speaking on the adoptive parents. It's just me. And for him to not use his platform in a bigger manner is odd to me. And I mean, there's so many. I could sit here all night and list all the red flags, but it's just even down to the basic search, that first video that's graining. I would have been beating down every door near me, screaming at the top of my lungs. They would have thought I lost my mind in my neighborhood.
100%. But instead, they searched for 6 minutes. And Jackie doesn't even come out of the house.
Right. But lies and says she did. We searched. No, heifer, you didn't. And if you were inside, what were you doing inside if the kids weren't there? And another thing, when he says, it bothers me that he says, I went in, I saw them, went back out. They weren't there. I realized the gate was open and I went back in. If you realize you left the gate open, why would you turn around and go back inside? Your wife's inside. So why would you not book it out the gate first thing?
I agree with you. And I get it that in a point of panic, who knows what you're doing, if you are running inside, if you're running after them. All I know is I can just draw on my personal experience as a parent that, like, if my 3-year-old or 4-year-old wandered off into the street, I don't care what time it was, I don't care how dark it was, I can assure you I would be searching for longer than 6 minutes. And like you said, I would be yelling at the top of my lungs, yelling for neighbors, get your cars out here, shine your brights. And as a mother, I wouldn't be staying in the house and wrapping gifts, or even if you were hoping that they return. And so you'd want to kind of like maintain ground there, you can still search the backyard. You can go back and forth in the front. Like, the whole thing is just the most bizarre, half-assed search, in my opinion. It just is not good because they knew they weren't going to find them.
Exactly. That's I always just go right back to that. It's a half-assed search because they knew that they weren't looking for anything.
Yeah.
And those dogs, I don't care. Anybody can downplay the talents of those dogs all they want to. I don't care. Those dogs find bodies, find people, can distinguish between scents. They are very talented, and they spend tons of time and money training them. So for those dogs to have not even picked up a scent in that backyard, you'll just never convince me they were there.
I agree. Too many red flags.
Yes.
Too many red flags.
I'll let you get to other callers. I love your show. Support you fully, girl. And it's nice. It's good to see you do an update on this case. I've been waiting for a new one. So, all right. You stay blessed.
Thank you. You too. Thanks so much for calling in.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Just Britt. How are you?
Good. How are you? First time caller.
I'm doing. Oh, hi. Welcome.
I mean, I'm in your chats occasionally. I'm more of a lurker than anything else, but I definitely follow the cases. And
That's all right.
the thing
Lurk
is,
away.
I actually, my 3, well, he's not 3 now, but at the time he was 3. We lost him when we were camping. He went off into the dunes because we lived on the coast. And
God.
we were looking for him for like 45 minutes. We found him, but I was at campgrounds everywhere. Like, I just, as a parent, I don't see how they looked for 6 minutes. And then like, oh, nope,
Mm-mm.
can't find him. 2 little boys. I'm
Nope.
sorry. No, there's
And
something wrong.
I agree. And if the excuse is that you wanted to get back to call the police because you lost daylight, all that, when you leave, you say, Jackie, you call the police. I'm going to go search the neighborhood. When the police get there, tell them I'm out searching. Like, and again, maybe
Exactly.
in the panic of the moment, you don't think through those things, but like 6 minutes. And then when you come back, you're just parked and standing next to a tree, not searching the neighbors' houses, not looking in the yard again, not doing anything. You're just literally standing against a tree waiting for the police to show up, like, because you knew you weren't going to find them. That's what I think.
Right. In the panic of the moment, I called 911. My husband got on his 4-wheeler and he found him out in the dunes about a mile away from us. So, no, I think that they're lying. I think that they're completely lying. They're not out there on interviews trying to find them. Nothing. You haven't heard anything from the parents except for that like one interview.
Mm-hmm. There hasn't been anything else except that one interview, and then just the hearsay based on the conversations that they had with the loan officer, the realtor, because even when all of this first started emerging and I was talking with the loan officer, Trezell was still texting her and she was forwarding me those messages.
Right. I remember the interview.
But he was, again, more concerned with himself, saying, and remember, he told her, nobody's helping me look for the boys. I'm like, what are you talking about? The entire public community is helping you look for these boys. But he was, again, making it about himself and worried that his house was going to have damage. And
it just makes me wonder how long these boys have been gone, because didn't he tell that realtor he had 4 kids?
Yep, he sure did.
That's why, I mean, I'm pretty up to date on the whole thing because I'm a big true crime buff as well. And so, and actually, Tiny Dancer happens to be one of my close friends. So, and I know you know her. So, but I just wanted to drop in and say hi. I am a lurker. I may not always post and comment.
Hey,
but
that's okay. Get your
Nothing
lurk on, girl. That's fine.
All right. Well, nice talking to you.
You too. Bye. Hey, Virgin, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I see you keep going in and out backstage, so hopefully your connection sticks.
Yeah. Hopefully I can.
Yes.
This case has honestly touched my heart, and I've kept in, I always try to go. I only listen to a couple of YouTubers. You're my favorite because I know you go into, you research before you even go out here and you speak to us. But listen, too many red flags. Too many.
I know. If we actually made a list right now just to count them out, I wonder what number we would get to.
God, Annie, I can't even. I mean, I lost my daughter in a mall when she was 4 years old, and I went insane. I mean, the mall was about to shut down because I was yelling. I was going crazy.
Yeah,
but
of course. Well, and that's what parents do.
And the fact that the CCTV, I know a lot of people are not, the CCTV that we saw doesn't match the story. I'm sorry. It doesn't. A lot of
I agree.
stuff.
And I know there was more. There was more video that came out recently where somebody was trying to say that they did see the boys' shadows in the backyard leave the gate.
No,
I have watched that over and over and over again, and I can't see what they're seeing.
No, because their backyard, it led towards like the front yard. If you can see the gate on that CCTV, it led to the front yard. And that man stood there for a few minutes, quite a while, before he even got on the van and went to look for the kids for 6 minutes and came back and called the police. Honestly, sir, I know certainly in my heart those kids never made it to the house. Honestly, that's my belief.
I'm with you on that. I don't think they made it to Cal City. If they did, I think
And
it was for a very finite period of time. And
yeah, and it's so
yeah,
sad. It's so sad to me because I have my grandkids and I have and it's like I can't even think what was their last moments, like you thinking, where are they? Like, what was their last moments like? And it's so sad to me. This is why I'm so invested in this case, and it's terrible. It's
I
really
agree.
terrible.
It's heartbreaking. And with Jackie, too, it's like you had already said that you took all the children to the grandparents' house. So there's no reason for you to have not searched and for you to just stay in that house. You're not watching the other children. You're not
Yeah.
still wrapping the 2 gifts that you were wrapping while
Yeah.
they were playing with Chuck. What is your reason for not searching for these children? It's just the amount of
like
red
you
flags,
said,
again, it blows my mind.
And like you said before in another video, like I want to see the police video when they went in the house. I want to see the gift wrapping. I want to see what was going on, because oh my God,
I
this is
know.
so bizarre. And I was raised in New York, and I'm like, NYPD would have been done with this already. I get desperate, and I don't want to downplay, and BPD or no type of law enforcement, because that's not me. But honestly, it could have something else. They need to
I
hurry
hear
up.
you.
They need to,
I'm
because
hopeful that now that it's moved back to Bakersfield, especially with the search warrants and all of the information they are collecting, I'm hopeful that we will get some answers soon. And they know that the public is extremely invested in this case, and so I would imagine they feel that the pressure is on. Oh, we got Virginia back. Hi,
yeah.
we lost you for a sec.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. It's just I have a lot. I overthink just like you, and I'm always thinking like, oh my God, they should have done this or done that. But I guess I'm not in law enforcement, so I can only put my opinion out there and just hope for the best.
I
Honestly,
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Annie. I love you so much,
Oh,
girl.
I love you too. I love you too. Have a
All
good night.
right. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, Louisiana girl, what's going on?
Hey girl, how you doing?
Hey, girl, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Good.
Everything for me goes back to the video on the 19th
Mm-hmm.
when they leave with 4 kids and come back with none.
Yep.
That to me, I can't get that out of my head because there's no way they left those kids there by themselves.
No, of course not. Which then it begs the question. So if the children have spoken to law enforcement, did they say that they weren't in the car that day? Did they say that they haven't seen them since the move? Like, I wonder, because kids are going to be more truthful more times than not than adults, because as adults, we know how to lie. We know how to get away with things, whether it's an outright lie or through omission, where children usually are more pure and kid will slip up certain details even if they've been coached in more times than not. So I'm interested to know what information that they've received from the kids, if any.
I had heard that the kids are saying the 19th, which blows my mind. But at the end of the day too, if I ask my almost 9-year-old what she had for lunch today, she's not going to remember that.
Right.
So, kids in specific dates don't always go hand in hand well. They'll remember them.
Yeah, or they'll remember. Yeah, they'll remember what they're told.
Right. So anyway, I don't want to keep you, but everything goes back to that for me.
Thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, Kathleen, how's it going?
It's going. Thanks for having me.
I wish it was going better. That sounds kind of not good.
One day at a time, honey. One day at a time.
I hear ya.
So something's been really bugging me that I haven't heard anybody else bring up, and I don't disagree with anything that anybody else has said. They're all red flags, but I've watched the interview several times, and I have just got, like, on the third or fourth time I watched it, it really punched me that when Trezell says that the kids are rambunctious, and then they were talking about wrestling, how the boys like to wrestle, and then Mom says, right before they get to the pictures, she says, "We don't know exactly," and then she stopped and she changed her wording and took "exactly" out, which means to me it was a slip of the tongue. And she was getting ready to say, "We don't know exactly what happened," or what something. There's something there. And I don't feel like they did it. I feel like my gut is telling me that the wrestling and the rambunctious is like the beginning of a cover of, like, when a parent hurts their child and says, "Oh, they fell down the steps," or "Oh, they fell off something in the backyard." They were rambunctious and they liked to wrestle. Like, that's going to be when it comes out. Well, they were wrestling. It was an accident. Something happened. We got scared. I don't know. It's just bugging me.
So are you thinking that they're using that as an excuse to cover abuse that's happening, or do you think that they in fact wrestled and maybe one child hurt the other and then they're trying to cover it up?
I think that somebody did something to them, and that's like their beginning story. Well, we've been saying from the beginning they were rambunctious and that they like to wrestle, but I don't think that it really happened.
So when they recover them, they could say, well, yeah, like maybe like to your point, if they say they were wrestling and this and that, like that's what happened. We got scared. We covered it up, rather than taking accountability for what their role is.
Something like that. But I've also got a strange feeling that his mom's in on it.
Really?
I do. I really feel like maybe, and I can't 100% tell you why, other than, like I said, that last time when I heard it, it just kind of like punched me in the gut that, like, she lost her temper, or she didn't have the patience for them that she did the other kids. I just feel like something happened and she hurt them and they're covering for her. And when they figure it out, it's going to be, some of the story is going to be about how rambunctious they are and how they wrestled and somebody hurt somebody, or they hurt each other or something. It's going to be, I can't get over it. And I haven't heard anybody else say anything about it. So maybe I'm crazy, but I think that slip of the tongue of Mom as well, of "we don't know exactly." And then let me back up. Oh, well, we don't know what happened. Well, what was exactly? Was it your nervous?
No, I think you bring up some good points, especially because when I first heard him talking about rambunctious, and not only, first of all, it's such a stupid thing to say in that moment, but also then he gets mad at himself and he's like, "Oh," like, and gets all pissed. But I thought to myself, I was like, I research a lot of different cases, and there have been more and more that I have seen because of COVID, where parents are, with the at-home learning, it becomes too much for them, whether they have a child with special needs, whether they have a child with ADHD, whatever the circumstances may be. And there was one case, and I can't think of her name off the top of my head, where she drowned her child in the community lake of where they lived and like tried to get away with it. And because they're just kind of at their breaking point with how much stress this has caused for them now that they're taking on this new role. So when they had said that, and when he said rambunctious, that's kind of where my mind went, as like, did they snap? Because whether they were in school before COVID or not, who's to say? We don't quite know all the details with that, but like, has it become too much since they have 6 children and the shutdown? And is that why something happened? Which could tie in directly to what you were saying, if there was some sort of abuse happening.
It very well could have been them. I feel like they're covering for somebody else, but I could be wrong. It could have very well been them, but I just feel like they're setting up the stage for something in case it's discovered that we've been telling you all along. This is, They
Oh,
loved to
gosh, it's
wrestle and they were
horrible.
rambunctious. But anyway, that was just my thought. I wanted to put it out there, and I will let other people have their turn. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you calling in. Thanks, Kathleen. All right, so let's move over to Jessica, and then we'll go to you, Stephanie. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
Hi, how are y'all?
Good, thanks.
I can't believe I'm actually on the phone with you right now. I'm sorry. Let me
No.
breathe a second.
Oh my God, please don't feel like that.
I'm like, is that really me that I'm seeing on there? Seriously? With Elise? Come on. Well, I want to say thank you for everything that you do and for all the stories that you share with us. I am actually an assistant director for a shelter in Texas that provides services to men, women, and children of domestic violence and sexual assault. And I kind of want to go piggy off of Kathleen for a little bit, because how she was talking about how they're kind of retracking and, oh, this and that. That sounds just like our survivors that come in, at first they're scared and then they're like, yeah, this and this and this happened. And you can kind of basically see them start talking to their abuser again, where it's like they kind of start retracting what they said, and I just, my heart is telling me, in which I want to believe that the kids are safe, but your heart kind of breaks too, because if they're safe, where are they? And do the parents know where they are? And they're just not saying anything.
Which, I mean, it's a very good point, and that kind of goes back whether they're alive or not alive anymore. At what point, with what little evidence they have, could there even be potential of a conviction? Because the more they stay quiet, the less evidence they find, the more likely whoever is involved or responsible for whatever did take place, the more likely they're going to get away with it, and it's going to go cold.
Exactly. When do we know when the last time that the kids are actually checked in on from anyone in the state?
Nobody has. So I've heard that once children are, and I'm not super well versed in the process, but from what I have been told, oh, look at that pup. From what I have been told, once they are adopted, they no longer have regular check-ins. And so the fact that a representative would not have come and checked in isn't a red flag in itself. But I think it's very, very weird that not a single neighbor has seen them. Nobody can account for when they were is there footage, like Mike was saying earlier, a gas station or a street light or anything where these children were seen. There's got to be something. The movers, who has seen these kids? And there isn't a concrete path that gives us any sort of timeline with that as at this moment that at least has been made public.
It just breaks my heart. And thank you so much for continuing again to just do what you do. And you're
thank you. I appreciate it.
You're a voice to so many people, and even myself as a survivor. It's nice knowing that there's somebody out there fighting for you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on. I feel like a kid at
You're
Christmas.
welcome.
I'm like, it's sad, but I'm excited. That's so wrong.
No, you need to call in more. You need to join Discord, because we talk all day, every day in there. It's a good private chat, and we talk about cases. We send memes. We send pictures of our animals. I mean, it's like a friend group. So come hang out and talk with us.
I would love to. I would definitely love to. And I will show pictures of my about to be 16-year-old pug. So we just found out he's a diabetic, and it's like, didn't know dogs could be a diabetic.
Perfect. See, you're going to fit right in.
Well, thank you. And I'm not going to keep your time any longer, or anybody else's. But again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And for all of you survivors out there, thank you for having a voice for us.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you, too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Stephanie, we're going to you and your little fur baby.
Hi there.
Hi.
She sees me pick up the phone, and she thinks I've called the cab and we're going for a ride. A service dog. So a couple things. I wanted to know if you talked to that person that loaned the Wests the down payment for the house anymore?
So I talked a little bit with her after my last video where I made the update. Not a lot of great information came from that conversation, which is why I haven't talked about it publicly. She basically was sharing some screenshots with me of messages from Trezell saying that he was worried about the condition of his house, how nobody was helping him, things like that. And then I actually reached out to her today just to say like, hey, I know you're catching a lot of heat right now because I've seen people are kind of just ripping her apart and accusing her of having an affair with him and just like all of these weird things. And so I just said, I hope you're doing well. Like, I hope it's no drama. Like, and she just said, I'm just trying to stay out of the drama. And I was like, 100%. And she seems to be doing well. I follow her on social media. I think I started following her when I like first reached out because I was trying to stalk a little bit, and I still follow her. And she's been posting lots of pictures and seems to be doing very well, like traveling with her husband and like super fitnessy. And she seems to be doing well.
That's great. I thought it was so strange that she was sure he said that there was only 4 kids. That's really stuck with me and bothered me.
Me too. And some people are saying that the reason they think she said that is because of 2 of the children being foster, that they wouldn't include that in. And maybe not. But again, if I was that parent, I would say I have 6 kids. I have 2 foster, 2 bio, 2 adopted. Like they're not your children. You're fostering them for a reason.
That's right. I've had a lot of foster boys that were just real short term, like when their families were in crisis. I mean, and it's near 30, and I call them all my children. So. Yeah, no matter how long that they were with me. Other thing that I wanted to bring up, you mentioned body language. Well, everybody mentions body language from that first public interview because it was so bizarre.
Was it like this the whole time?
And I just wanted to introduce to our crime community the science of statement analysis. I've been taking some forensic classes, and I just finished one online about statement analysis, and it's a lot more reliable than body language or even lie detectors, because the words you choose to use when you're talking or writing, it doesn't fluctuate as much as if you're nervous. If you're nervous or have high anxiety, it can really affect your body language or how a lie detector turns out. But they really have a science around this where, like if somebody uses the word, they caught a guy that killed his wife because he used the word with. I mean, he said, I was going to the store with my wife instead of my wife and I went to the store. And just because they used the word with, they knew that he did something. I mean, they have it. That didn't make sense to me at first when I first heard about that. But now that I've had the class, it does make a lot of sense. And the psychology behind it, and using the word with, it's counterintuitive, but you're actually distancing yourself from the person you're talking about when you use the word with. And
that's so fascinating.
It is so fascinating. And there's a YouTube channel called Statement Analysis that you could check out. I could send you some links later if you like. Should I send those to the info?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. But one of the things that we did a lot in class was try to pay attention to if the person used the past tense or the present tense and interchanged it. And I'm not just saying, there's one that everybody always catches if somebody refers to somebody that went missing in the past tense, it's like they know they died. But it's not just that, but if they're talking, and Trezell did it in that interview so much where he was talking about, I'm throwing wood, don't go on, and he keeps switching back and forth between present and past tense. And as I took that class, and there's on the link that I'll send you that you can end up post, maybe you even want to interview the guy from that channel. It's almost like they were doing an example of what he teaches about. And he like works for the FBI and trains them all. And his credentials are a mile long. But ever since I took that class, that it made that initial interview like 100 times more problematic to me.
Oh, I bet.
And we did the letter that was left in the John Benet Ramsey case, and you know, nobody wants to hear Chris Watt's name again, but I just really want to turn the community on to statement analysis, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's writing or speech. And then just a suggestion, I've been trying to figure out how we could do this, because I just go crazy every time there's an Amber Alert or should be an Amber Alert. And, you know, we have all this technology available. Why can't we just automatically hit a button and, you know, because somebody's in a car, they got to stop at a gas station eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we just automatically order the video footage from all the gas stations and so many miles from that site? And
so I have to tell you, and I don't know what the actual protocol is for this, but just drawing on experience, for those of you who are in here who, it was the beginning of January, I believe, a good friend of ours went missing. Her name was Kara, and I came on here trying to enlist help because we were out there searching for her, and luckily she's safe now and reunited with her family. But one of the things as we were out there searching for her is we went to all of these gas stations by where we knew she was last seen or where she had been reported to have been seen. And we could, and I get it, we're not law enforcement, but they weren't even like willing to help us. They're like, oh, well, my manager has to approve it and he's not in until tomorrow night. Well, I don't care. Call your fucking manager. Like, what are you talking about? You're losing time. And like, you're right. Like, why? There has to be a better system in place to share information. And I get where it may end up sending people on a wild goose chase because false tips come in, this or that. But like, there should definitely be a better protocol in place.
Absolutely.
Although, as I said,
know a car can only go so many miles before it has to get gas.
Right. But you know what, though? As I say that out loud, though, I see where that could be problematic because if the media obtains certain information before law enforcement does, and then it tips the people off involved, like I see where it could then spiral and become a huge problem.
Right. But at least if law enforcement could have it, if I'm trying to think of what kind of legislation could we put forward with gas stations in particular, because abductions usually happen with automobiles.
Yeah.
That, I mean, we have the video capability of doing a watch. We should be able to tell, you know, by the date, if the Wests were coming and going, and like Mike said, you know, if there was how many kids were in the car. I mean, we have the technology to do that. Why aren't we doing that? And I just want to get everybody thinking about what kind of legislation we could get somebody to sponsor to get that technology going. Because, I mean, even if it was only for law enforcement and we didn't personally have access to it, I agree with you that there's so many of them that they don't have even film in the cameras. Maybe we could put in conjunction with 5G.
Yeah.
That's rolling out everywhere. But anyway, I really like the show. It's great to meet you. I'll let the next person in the batter's box get up there. And,
thanks, Stephanie. I appreciate you calling in.
I'll send you those links on email.
Please do.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right, I hope I pronounced this right. Tell me if I did. Slemke?
It's actually Stephanie with my last name Lemke.
Oh. Damn it.
Yeah. But I just wanted to call. I'm from Wisconsin, and we just had the Jim Prokopovich trial go on for the past 2 weeks, and he was actually found guilty of murder without. They never found her body.
Wow.
And he was actually arrested 6 years after her disappearance. And he finally just got done with the trial. He was just sentenced on Saturday, and still no word of where her body is or whatever happened to her.
And did he get convicted of murder or manslaughter?
Of murder. And then also of perjury. And then there was 2 other charges. And his girlfriend that he was seeing after this all was going on, she lied on the stand and got charged with perjury as well, but committed suicide before she was able to be charged.
Oh my gosh, that's just like the Jennifer Dulos case out of Connecticut, where Fotis, I hate that name, and he committed suicide before he actually stood trial. And I'm 100% certain that he killed her, and his girlfriend helped 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my
gosh. I just want to
gosh.
jump on here and say that, I mean, hopefully
It happens.
It does. It happens. And I mean, I believe that Jim fully committed the crime or whatever, but there's a lot of back and forth on if people really think that he should be charged or not.
Well, thank you for calling in and sharing that. I need to look into that. That's really fascinating. I wonder what that circumstantial evidence was. And I mean, it must have been very compelling. So I'm interested to look at that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the lies that they showed and that he told the cops out of the 8 years that they investigated him, his lies told the truth after all said and done. So yeah, Absolutely. It was really interesting. You should look into it.
Oh, I will for sure. Thank you so much for calling in. And I love your hair. You're like little space buns. They're so cute. I love it. Have a good night.
Right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, Rebecca, you're from Connecticut. That case was crazy. I'm still looking into it because I believe, what's her face? Michelle, I'm going to butcher her last name, Tracarius. I forget how you say her last name. I think we're going to get some information out of her, and I really hope they recover Jennifer's body because that case is just absolutely heartbreaking. But that's the Jennifer Dulos case, and it's just awful. Let's see here. I see some of you guys are asking about Discord and what that is. Trust me, I didn't know what it was either because I am not tech savvy. Mike's obviously older than me, no shade, but he was yelling at me before the show when we were testing the tech because I don't have a Twitter. And he's like, we need to get you one. I'm like, I know, I can't keep up with all these things. But anyways, I didn't know what Discord was either because I was like, it's one more fancy thing. Just picture it as like a group chat text message thread, but it's through an app. So it's more secure and you don't have to use your phone number or even your real name. You can use a username like you do here. And so literally like this live chat here, that's what it is. But just we have different threads for different cases. We have a general one. We're sharing pictures, photos, videos all day. So that's what it is. It's really not hard to work. So if you want to join that, the link's in the description below, or I see Margaret just threw it in. You can do it here too. It's all linked through Patreon because that's our way to keep the trolls out. And we've done a very good job of keeping the trolls out, I have to say. There hasn't been a leak in quite some time, which makes me very, very happy. All right, guys. So what else? This week, I wasn't planning to do this live. I was going to do a pre-recorded on the missing mother from Chula Vista. That is still coming, hopefully before the weekend. I'm going to record that and get that up for you. And there's obviously a lot of information that goes into that. I know I keep saying it, and I hope that one of these days I can actually share the updates with you, but we're getting closer and closer and closer. I have exciting news to be sharing with you guys soon, so it's coming. I just am waiting for that green light. And what else? I don't know what else, guys. What else? If you have any other questions, please throw them in the chat. Otherwise, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, turn your notification bell to on, hit that thumbs up on your way out, and I will keep you posted with upcoming live streams and videos as we cover new cases and continue to cover this case in depth. So anyways, I think that's all I've got. I'm going to go make dinner for my little meatball, and I'm going to eat those like dark chocolate acai berries, the covered ones. I bought like a mega bag from Costco and I'm obsessed. So I'm going to go chief that down. And then I'm probably going to just call it a night. I feel like there was something else I wanted to tell you guys, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know. I'll think of it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. And thanks again to Mike for joining the channel and joining the panel tonight. Check him out at Profiling Evil if you have not already. And until the next case, stay safe. Thank you, Dick Tracy. I appreciate this. How do you feel about YouTubers posting about sightings? You mean like last reported sightings? Again, I think similar to what Mike said earlier, any sort of information and intel we can gather is important. I would hope that they would inform the police about the sightings before putting it on public record out there, just as an effort not to like spook anybody or, you know, hinder any leads. But that's just what I think. Anyways, all right, everybody, until the next case, stay safe. Thank you, mods, for handling the chat tonight. And thank you, all of you beautiful subscribers, for tuning in. And thank you to all of our new members and all of the generous super chats. I love you guys. I will catch you in Discord after this. Happy March. Happy Tuesday. I'm in a great mood. All right. Have a good night, guys.